To leave executive session.
Yes.
Councilman Valentine, second on that motion?
Second.
All right, Councilman Divney, all in favor of leaving executive session? All right, folks, we were just having a executive session for our police commission downstairs. Thank you all for being here. So we're going to go straight to, since roll was called already, we'll go to our Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first we have a couple of brief announcements. 1 week from today, on February 13th at 8:05 p.m., we will be holding another public hearing. There are two today, but this is an additional one for something else. It's for parking meters in the town of Orangetown, specifically in Pearl River. It's an amendment to the town code. That's 8:05 p.m. next week. And then March 13th, we'll be having another public hearing regarding a mixed-use zoning application for Orangeburg Commons. That will also be at 8 o'clock p.m. Those are both regular town board meetings. We'll stop, do the public hearing, and do that. Excuse me. Next, we have some presentations for folks in the audience here. So the first one, Councilman Troy is going to take care of for some of our local Girl Scouts.
40125 with the Girl Scout Troop. They've been here before, where they've, girls, yeah, come on up. Where they have done volunteer work at the Conway House. Conway House doesn't get any federal state money. And it's a thing where what these girls did have jumped into the void and done a tremendous amount of volunteer work. I saw all the pictures of the people working like girls working like crazy. They're very talented girls, taking care of people who really need help. So, because the Girl Scouts are so self-sufficient, what they're going to do is get up and each one's going to speak about what they did. First, just introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Carrie McAleer, and I'm a freshman at Pearl River High School, and I'm in Girl Scout Troop 40125. The Conway House is a homeless shelter currently housing 20 residents in Orangeburg, New York. The game room is a room where the residents meet, play games, and carry out their day-to-day activities. Many of the residents use this room on a day-to-day basis, and I enhanced this room and made it a pleasant place to be. The room was dirty and not painted for years, and it needed a touch-up. In the room, there was a lot of clutter, which we had to get rid of. I painted the room, cleaned, repaired, and replaced the lighting, and replaced furniture in bad condition. The clean and updated room made the residents feel more comfortable and helped them to socialize. After 3 months of preparation and 73 hours in total, on the rainy weekend of May 13th, 2017, I completed my Silver Award project. I prepared the room on Friday night and completed the room by the end of Saturday evening. I'm beginning to plan for my Gold Award, and after this rewarding experience, I'm planning to return to the Conway House.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Harrington, and I am a 9th grader at Pearl River High School. Recently, I was awarded with my Girl Scout Silver Award. This award is the second highest achievement a Scout can earn, and it requires a great amount of time and effort. To receive my award, I worked closely with the Maggie Conway Rooming House here in Orangetown. This house offers a home to adults who are previously homeless and are living with behavioral health and medical conditions. When I first visited the house, I noticed that the condition of the back garden was not the best. I wanted to change this, so I decided to get to work on making it a wonderful place for residents to spend their time. For my project, I removed a great deal of garbage from the yard and planted a brand new garden filled with beautiful flowers. In addition, I bought new furniture for residents to use, fixed the grill, and built a footpath. Creating this beautiful space was not easy. It required over 50 hours of planning and community service and hundreds of dollars. On top of that, in order to receive the award, 10 of those hours needed to be leadership. I was able to obtain a majority of those hours and money by planning and hosting a flower party for younger troops, where I explained my project and taught the girls about the importance of gardening. Thanks to the help of my family and fellow troop members, the party was a success, and I was able to raise over $600 for my project. I was able to spread the word about the work I was doing at the Conway House by posting about my progress on a website I made and by creating a YouTube video showing the entire process. I hope that both can help inspire others to do the same for their community. After finishing my project, I could see how greatly it impacted the residents. Now they are able to spend time outside and admire the beautiful flowers instead of being forced to look at garbage. I'm extremely proud of the work I have done for the Conway House and my community, and I hope to help the residents for my Gold Award. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kira Riker, and I am part of Girl Scout Troop 40125. Recently, I have finished my Silver Award, which is the second highest award a Girl Scout can receive. For this award, along with the help of friends and family, I worked on renovating the main living room of Joseph's home, or more commonly known as the Conway House. This house is made up of a group of men and women who have been taken off the street and been given a place to call their home. The Conway House is a place that does not receive public assistance and lacks volunteers. Since the shelter could not afford to repaint and renovate the room, I stepped up to work on this room. For a long weekend, I recruited family and friends to help work on this room and make it a happier place. Many of the residents use this room on a day-to-day basis, and my job was to enhance the room, making it a pleasant place to be. The room was dirty and hadn't been painted in years. There was a lot of clutter that needed to be cleared. I painted, cleaned, and repaired some of the furniture that was in bad condition. I also used fundraising techniques to raise money for supplies and a cleaning service. I also found that the women's bathroom needed to be cleaned. I took on that project as well by cleaning it, bleaching the dirty parts, and caulking the bathroom, toilet, and sink. Besides the rooms I worked on, I found there was also a need for seating outdoors, so I purchased 4 Adirondack chairs for the front yard with money left over. Since my project, there has been a clear change in attitude. The residents seem much more content. Although us Girl Scouts had many options for other projects, we chose the Conway House because it was in the most need of community service. Conway House was unknown to me as well as my family and friends. We are hoping that our projects make others aware of the need to help this establishment. I found this project very rewarding, and I will hopefully continue my Gold Award here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Erin Mccabe, and I am a 9th grader at Pearl River High School. For my Silver Award project, I decided to build a new shed at the Conway House. The old shed at this location was falling apart and needed to be replaced. A new shed could hold lawn furniture, gardening tools, and the barbecue grill. These items are greatly enjoyed by the residents, which made a new shed very important to keep these items safe during the winter months. After meeting with Kelly to determine the proper size and location of the new shed, my dad and I made up a plan for an 8-foot by 12-foot shed in the rear yard of the Conway House. The first step of construction was to use concrete blocks to create a level base for the floor and use pressure-treated lumber to create the floor of the shed. Next, we framed the walls and stood them up, leaving an opening for the door to be installed later. After all walls were erected, we covered the 2x4s with plywood and then began framing the roof and covering that with plywood as well. The walls were covered with house wrap and vinyl siding, and the roof with felt paper and asphalt shingles that make the shed weatherproof and maintenance-free. We added a door and lock set and finished the project with PVC trim to make it look a bit nicer. While this project was very challenging, I had a great time building it with my dad and brother. It also gave me a wonderful opportunity to gain new skills while meeting and interacting with new people and advancing my position as a Girl Scout and as a good citizen in my community. This was a very rewarding project, and I look forward to doing my Gold Award at the Conway House.
Girls, hold on one second. Okay. First of all, your parents have to be very proud of you. The town board is very proud of you. I was speaking to Legislator John Murphy today, who is the executive director for Loeb House, which deals with Conway House, and he's very proud of you. And I have certificates for your Girl Scout leader, who's, I tell you, showing a lot of leadership by staying in the back and letting the girls shine, but the Carolyn Reichert, and they have a certificate also for the troop. And then there's also, I guess, 3 other girls who couldn't come tonight: Lisa Gallagher, Julia Brinzetti, and Kelly Surlis. So if you come up here, I'll hand you the certificates, and you can shake hands with the town board, because, again, we are very proud of you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Great job there. Thank you for your contributions. Next, we have a presentation. As you all know, I'm sure February is Black History Month, so we have a couple of presentations, folks that were nominated for both for us to proclaim Black History Month here in Orangetown, and in honor of two folks who were nominated for their contributions to our local African American community. So first, I'm going to read. We're honoring this evening Wilbur T. Aldridge. Wilbur is the Mid-Hudson Regional NAACP Director. He's also the first Vice President of the Nyack NAACP. He participated in sit-ins back in the period of segregation down in the South, at segregated lunch counters, and has made a lot of contributions to our community and to the African American community here in Orangetown and broadly speaking in New York and in the country. So I'm going to briefly read the actual content of the proclamation. And we are also going to be, is a duplicate, the proclamations are saying they're both in honor of two different folks. Our second recipient that we're doing this in honor of is Dr. Frances Pratt. She's the Nyack NAACP president. She didn't know we were doing that today. Yes, we did. Surprised her. She's our Nyack NAACP president for years now, I think longer than I've been around. And she's a resident of Nyack and just great contributions to the broader community as well. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and I'd ask for both of you to come up and receive your proclamations. Yeah, thank you. Please. Whereas in 1976, in the year of America's bicentennial, President Gerald Ford declared February as Black History Month to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of African Americans to the United States, and the declaration of Black History Month has been repeated since then. And whereas in Orangetown, Black history is town history, for over 300 years, the African American residents of the town have contributed to the development of this community. And whereas many local groups, including the NAACP, the Nyack Center, the Rockland Negro Scholarship Fund, and others have held or will hold events to commemorate Black History Month, now therefore it be resolved that in order to publicly recognize and celebrate the contributions of the African American residents of our town, that the Town Board of the Town of Orangetown hereby proclaims February 2018 as Black History Month in the town of Orangetown, as signed by myself and Charlotte Madigan, Town Clerk. So if both of you could please come up and we'll give you these proclamations. Always nice to be on. You guys want to still do the whole days here?
Thank you. Thank you.
See, Frances nominated Wilbur, and then she was counter-nominated by other folks in the community, so we didn't want to tell her that she was getting snuck in here. All right, thank you. So that gets to our through our presentations, and moving on to discussions. Zone change agreement for Town Plaza. I don't know what this is. A discussion item? Is it something that we have to go through right now? We're putting it on an agenda for. No. Okay. This is going on. This is the one with the change in zone in that one section of the lot, right? Is that? No. Different one. Are they here? Is someone from Town Plaza here just to chime in a little bit? Yeah. I don't see him here. Okay. We'll get back to it if we need to. The next thing is really more kind of a brief update for the public. We've been discussing. Yes. Howard Phillips, is he here? I don't see him. I don't see him. There he is. Oh, he's here for Wilbur. Supervisor Town of Haverstraw, Howie Phillips, is in the back there. We're just all sitting.
I just came for Will.
I'm sure you did.
Special gift. I didn't know you were doing Francis as well.
I'm-
Just thank you so much for honoring one of ours and a longtime good friend and a really classy lady. Guys,
Thank you. Honored to have you down here, Supervisor Phillips. So just a brief update for the committees and boards. We've been holding interviews. We had several interviews. We've completed the interview process generally, except for a few left for our air quality review committee that's being created. It was slightly delayed because the committee didn't exist yet. We had our special town board meeting for interviews. We had a lot of incredible applicants. We're getting finalized on where everyone's going to go, and that'll be appointments we made at the next meeting. It was actually a fairly substantial number of applicants, but not more than we needed. I think that most of them will have a home somewhere, except for ones that specifically went for one board that may not have the space. So that's the update on that. So we'll move on to our agenda items. The first thing we have is public hearing. So Yeah, sure. Do we have a motion for a brief 5-minute recess? All right, Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Divney. All in favor for a brief recess? All right, 5-minute recess?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. If anyone wants to just get up and shake hands with people who got awards and stuff, and we'll reconvene here in 5 minutes. Thank you. Physically can. There are some people speaking. There's at least one. If there's still comments. Okay, I call this meeting back into order, having had our 5-minute recess. All right, I get a second from Councilman Divney. All in favor? Aye. All right. So our next item on the agenda is to open our public hearing on the local law amendment related to performance standards for odor and a particulate matter. I'll move it. Second by Councilman Divney. All in favor of opening that public hearing?
Aye.
Okay. First, we have a sign-in on the public comment portion of the hearing. John Curran, regarding the performance standards. Commenters have 5 minutes for public hearings, not 3 as they do for normal public comments, but you just talk up to 5 if you like. All right. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Curran, and I represent API Industries and Lift Plastics. I have with me tonight written statements prepared by my office and by our expert. I implore the board to read these carefully because each identifies clearly the fatal flaws in these proposed amendments to the performance standards. Now, I'm sure that there are numerous assumptions concerning what my purpose is for being here tonight, so let me be clear. We fully understand, and we have no objection to what the town is trying to accomplish. What I'm telling you, however, is that these amendments to the performance standards, proposed amendments, do nothing toward accomplishing those goals. You can enact these as written, and I assure you that a year from now, nothing will have changed. The only difference is that your town officials will be wrestling with these wholly arbitrary and unworkable set of regulations. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I think that we can all agree that the goal is to compel commercial and industrial operators to curtail and to control the odors from their respective operations. Therefore, the regulations should describe a reasonable approach for determining source, intensity, and persistence. These proposed amendments do none of that. For example, there are no provisions in any of these proposed amendments for determining source of odors. Now, if I'm standing in the middle of the field and the only thing for miles around is a pig farm, I think it's safe to assume where the odors are coming from. It's not the case in a populous town with numerous industrial operators, laundry facilities, dry cleaning facilities, dozens of restaurants, and a sewage plant. It's never safe to assume under those circumstances where a particular odor is coming from. Nothing in these proposed amendments also provide any guidance as to what's acceptable. Instead, they have a mechanical way of determining whether an odor exists, but not whether an odor is offensive. And the reports identified in the proposed amendments themselves make it clear that the threshold for detecting whether an odor is present is much lower, often many multiples lower than the threshold for determining whether an odor is offensive. And quite frankly, what's offensive? I personally find the aroma of hazelnut coffee to be offensive, but I'm not going to go around issuing violations to every Dunkin' Donuts. I asked the board, why not consider a law that compels industrial and commercial operators to use best management practices to control and to curtail the odors from their respective operations? A law like that has the benefit of being applied evenly across all industries. It's non-arbitrary. It's enforceable. And at the end of the day, if it's enforced evenly, I am certain and confident that in no time, the odor problems of Orangetown will abate and will disappear. These proposed regulations simply do not accomplish that. I thank you for your time, and again, I ask you to please read carefully these written statements. I have 4 copies. I've actually given one to Mr. Michaels, but I can hand it. They're all essentially originals. Okay.
And I'll give the original to the town clerk.
Terrific.
Part of the official record.
Okay.
He has 4
Can-
copies.
Yeah, can we get those for now, and then we'll,
Original here, I'll run copies.
You wanted to hand them to us.
yeah, can we get
It's-
the 5?
Sure. Here.
Thank you, Josh.
Charlie, I will give you the original.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just members of the board, I'll also give a copy to Mr. Bonneville, Sandra Bonneville, our expert consultant on the proposed
Yes, that.
technical changes to the performance standards.
You have one more? I think it's over there. Oh, I'm sorry, there's 2 separate documents. My mistake. Yeah.
You want this, and then I can get a copy.
Okay.
I'm gonna run a few copies.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone who did not sign in for the public comment period? Yes, Allison Sullivan?
Allison Sullivan, Blauvelt, New York. I actually, after reading this, I just want to, in layman's terms, say, for example, I want to give an example. Let's say, me and 4 of my neighbors call in an odor report in the designated time that may give a violation or whatever. What exactly happens? What does this look like? Does someone come out to the house? Do they track the odor? And then, can you just tell me exactly what this looks like without all the legal terms and everything, so we can just better understand what it looks like? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Took me longer to figure out the timer than any other comments on? It took your entire speech. I was trying to figure out the timer remote, and then we went anyway. Any other comments for the public comment related to our performance standards public hearing? Heather Hurley.
Hello, good evening. Heather Hurley, Pearl River. I just have a couple of questions or comments. I did appreciate the addition of, in section 4.164, that it also includes derived from not combustion, so I appreciate that that was revised from the original draft. In 4.163, regarding the passage stating other than that caused by steam, again, it's just a question of, and I haven't really had a chance to look through this whole amendment, but who exactly is determining what is coming out of what appears to be steam, or just labeled as from a company as water vapor? I mean, this is something, again, I just want to reiterate, it was something that was addressed with an LTEC, the DEC, things like that. So who is determining what is actually steam? Is this going on a company's own word that it's just water vapor? Is this including research and development, or is this only, will the industrial user encompass research and development? Because that can also come up as an issue. And R&D within the DEC is exempt from certain air permitting. So if that is not included in this, can that be addressed at some point? I appreciate that in section 10.335, the addition of the consultant being selected and hired by the town at the expense of the industrial user. Thank you for that. And this also kind of adds to what Allison Sullivan was saying, a question of compliance and non-compliance, and how will the town handle complaints coming in if they are being received after hours? Is that covered in this? And will the town have an on-call after-hours employee to verify all odor complaints as they're happening? And I think that was it. So I'm assuming it's not being voted on tonight because of these new notes that were coming in, but I think that was it. Yeah, that was it for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other folks who'd like to comment regarding this public hearing on our performance standards for odor, et cetera? Okay. We have our consultant, Sandra Bonville, here, who was involved in this process. Is there anything that you would like to add, just as our in-house or hired expert related to this subject, since you made the trip down? That's part of the book. Would you mind, just because it's being broadcast, so we won't hear you on the TV? Yeah. We hired Mr. Bonville as part of this whole process. He's coming down to help brief us with a few more
Right.
details.
The idea originally, going back about 6 months ago, was to update some performance standards that were quite old, and they were out of date. And so the idea was to at least take a first step, get into this 21st century, and there were performance standards that were concerned with quantitation. How can we somehow quantify, put a number to it? And so this was a first draft, just to get something on paper, and then we were looking forward to outside public comment, and that'll move everything forward. And we'll add to it, or we'll subtract. It's an organic thing. So we looked at odor, we looked at noise, we looked at particulate matter, and we looked at opacity. Those were the 4 issues. Is there anything in particular somebody wants to ask? Again, this was just a start to the process. Some of those standards went back to like 1940s and 50s, and they were no longer applicable to what's going on today, or they were no longer existing standards.
Well, one of the questions I think, so the local law, proposed local law affects all non-residential users. So to answer, I think it was Ms. Hurley's question, all commercial, industrial users.
commercial and
Yeah.
industrial,
Whether
yeah.
or not their particular use
It's
or
irrelevant as to
occupancy,
whether it's already,
but it covers all
production or-
non-residential
yeah,
users.
it's everyone.
Whether or not a particular industrial user, well, not industrial user, a particular commercial user, like a deli, for example, would be obligated to go through a performance standards review is determined on a case-by-case basis,
Right.
as per the regulations. It's not an arbitrary or discretionary choice by a building inspector. It's whether or not a particular non-residential user, like a deli versus an Anelitech or an Aloof Plastics, for example, it's all set forth in the regulations as to what has to go through the performance standards review and procedures and requirements or not. But to start off, it applies to all non-residential uses, all of them, to start. And then
Right.
we vet out those that would be exempt.
Gotcha. So technically, if you have anything else to add, or generally, we're not necessarily going to go into direct question and answers, but
No,
and this is the
nothing
town
else.
board. Is there any questions from the behalf of
That's
the board
just-
for Mr.
That's the
Bonville?
overall framework of where we're headed.
Okay.
My understanding is this is the first draft.
Yes. So this is still workshop. I mean, this is our public hearing. We've gotten substantive comment on it that would probably necessitate like further review.
Does Jane want to add anything?
Jane, do you have anything you want to add to the comments? No? Okay. John, you have anything?
Well, just so that we're clear, if it's a first draft and
Yeah.
you're going to make meaningful changes, then we're going to start the procedure over again. So it's really not a work in progress as a local law. It may be, if you choose to adopt it,
That in
and
years,
then
we may revise
see
it
how
again,
it
yeah.
works and whether changes, that's fine, but, it's not an iterative process toward, except to the extent that we go back and we renotice, we make changes, and we start again.
To clarify, yeah, this is a proposed law that will go on the books. I think what Mr. Val was referring to is that just as time has passed, we are updating our current performance standards. We may again in the future find the need to update these, but this would be a first step to get us at least to a scientific level of measurement, a standard base for all parties involved. Right now, the standards are not at all scientific in terms of the measurements of odors and things like that. So it is not, to clarify again, not a draft law. It is actually, though it's a step in the direction that we're looking to do that is worthy of having actual public hearing on it and possibly entering into law. Any other questions?
Basically, there can be changes made, they just can't be substantive.
Right.
If they are, then we have to
Then we
redo
have to start
the
over.
whole
We
thing.
can make some minor changes, and
Okay.
change whereas statements, and,
It appears to me
Paragraph
that
here,
it's
paragraph
going to
there.
not be minor, it's going to be substantive.
well, I think we should either way, we shouldn't be voting tonight on it,
No.
given that we just got
Yeah.
two packets worth of feedback here from an engineer.
Procedurally, you can't vote on it
Yeah.
tonight
We can't
anyway.
even vote on it tonight, right.
There are procedural steps we need to take, which we're
Okay.
going to move into when you're ready.
Okay.
Dennis, Mr. Curran raised some points tonight. Have the points he raised been previously entertained or thought about?
Well, this is the first correspondence, I believe, that
No, I'm saying that, but have any of the points he raised
Have you
tonight
seen
been
it, have you
considered?
seen this before tonight?
No, that's not the question. Have you guys considered what he's talking about when you guys were drafting this legislation?
based upon what his comments at the podium here were very general, so
A little source and
I
threshold.
I believe we did, but obviously, Mr. Curran's law firm and his client
No, I'm just-
don't feel that we
Okay.
adequately addressed those points.
They were considered, though.
Yeah, Mr. Bonville, who
Okay.
spoke a few minutes ago, indicated that you looked at opacity, particulate matter.
Conversations going back and forth, and this is what we ended up with.
Right.
Any source has to be identified.
Yeah.
Source was obviously a big part of what we were trying to, we've been wrestling with that for months. How to
Right.
determine source, that's not new.
No.
It will be an issue, and hopefully, we'll get to a point that even our industrial users can be satisfied as to how we address the source of the objectionable, whether it be noise, odor, it's always an issue that needs to be addressed.
What's the feeling here? Do we want to
I don't think you vote on it.
continue the
tonight.
public hearing? Continue.
Well, can we just handle some housekeeping?
Yep. Well, we're going to continue, but
We
I
have
just,
to issue our notice of intention?
We do have to
declare-
do the secret, we could do that tonight, but we're going to want to continue the public hearing,
Oh, definitely.
yes.
Yeah.
So we can do 3, but 2, what we're going to move is, instead of adjourning it, we're going to continue it to the date that's referenced here. So you guys see number 2 on the agenda?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to move that we continue public hearing on the proposed local law to the regular town board meeting of April 10th, 2018. Is there a second? Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and moving on, we can declare secret without a problem.
Well, it's a notice of intention.
Notice of intention to declare secret,
Yes.
so, do you have a motion for number 3 to, notice of intention to declare?
I'll second.
Councilman Valentine, all in favor? I'm sorry, second. Councilman Batari, all in favor? Okay,
One other.
and then, yeah, there should be a 4th one here. This is regarding this is for the county planning board, referring to them so they can, our department, and to our planning board so they can go through their process.
Both the county, Department of Planning, and our.
And our planning board, so county's Department of Planning and Orangetown Planning Board, we're referring it to them so they can begin their process. Is there a motion for number 4 to do that? Councilman Troy, second. Councilman Valentine, all in favor? Aye. I think that was, okay, then that's the next thing we'll hold there. So just to clarify for everyone in layman's terms, we will have more public comment on this in April to monitor changes. However, we've moved the process forward in the secret and the planning board process, so timeline isn't really effectively
but
delayed.
Dennis, if it's substantive changes, when
We're not
when
saying-
April comes, we're just not doing anything again.
As John pointed out, if there are substantive changes, then we just
Right.
start the process anew. But it's all in the system now, so it should be
We might
done.
as well continue with it.
It'll
and-
be very efficacious to just renotice. We just have to change some dates and just send
And-
everything out again.
There may not be substantive changes, it may just be substantive comments to read that result in no changes,
Correct.
possibly.
Correct.
So it's just the quantity of things we have to go through.
I would say slight tweaks, whether or not it's substantive, council will advise.
Right, that's up to you, John.
Process, but I mean, I would like to address Mr. Curran, though. You brought up source, and that's a valid point. But when your client is denying us access, so when we're trying to determine source, it's kind of ironic that you would bring up source tonight. We've been denied access by your company in our efforts to determine sources. And then you brought up best management practices. I mean, it might be a best management practice for aloof, but it's not in the best interest of the town of Orangetown, the way that your client is practicing and conducting itself in the town of Orangetown. So I just find some of your statements ironic, and that you're telling us about source and best practices when you're denying us access, and you've totally ignored the concerns of the residents of Orangetown. That's all I have to say on that.
I think that's fair. We were, just as an update, our folks did go in and go do stack testing. They were denied access at the time. Again, not really cooperative, but hey. All right, so moving on to our second public, we've closed already the comments, so we can move on to our second public hearing. So do I have a motion to open the public hearing regarding, options of right advice? Councilman Divney, is there I'll move that, and we'll second with Councilman Divney. All in favor? Okay, so we have so far one signed in, Rabbi Craig Sheff of the Orangetown Jewish Center in Orangeburg.
Good evening, Craig Sheff, Orangeburg, New York, and representing the Orangetown Jewish Center this evening as a rabbi in the community as well. I just wanted to not speak to the content of the proposal for this evening, but rather to the process. And I wanted to just extend a thank you to Supervisor Chris Day for the way in which he reached out to the leadership of the Jewish community to consult with us in advance of this hearing this evening, and to make sure that he could hear input from the Jewish leadership, from Federation, from Community Relations Council, from Rabbi Pernick of Temple Beth Am in Pearl River, and from myself, and to know that our feedback was taken and was heard. I'm just very grateful for the process, and I hope that this signals just a working relationship moving into the future for our entire community, for the betterment of all of us. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Rabbi, I appreciate that. Is there anyone who has any comments for this particular local law? Anyone else who's here to speak on this issue? Okay. So there were some, based on the feedback from our local leaders, there were some non-substantive modifications to the law. Doesn't really change anything structurally, but a few whereases were changed and such. But I appreciated that input. It was very helpful and a great process. So, does anyone here have any comments or thoughts on the subject? And I trust you've generally all read it, obviously. So we have, this is all in the agenda, what the proposed things.
John, what are we going to do?
So we have to adjourn the public hearing. We can probably adjourn it, given we've had no real comment. We don't have to actually continue it.
Right.
And then we can do the lead agency vote.
Well, it's the intention. I think it's,
Secret.
we got to do referral to the town, planning board, the county.
Yeah,
planning
that's in
board.
here, yeah.
All right, so let's do that.
Okay, so first, did it say we should continue?
Adjourn, continue public hearing. All right, so a
we can adjourn
motion,
the public hearing. So you have a motion?
motion to continue the public hearing on April 10th, 2008 at 8:25.
Okay, we have a second. All right, Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then number 7, we're going to move to seek lead agency status on this subject. A motion?
It's a notice of intention to declare.
Declare secret, right?
So it's just,
What are you looking at?
right here. This is different.
Oh, that's a different packet.
This is tonight. I think this is the new one, right?
I'm looking at numbers.
No, we have a different one.
That's the zoning code standards, you're just one behind. You're just the previous. Non-utility devices.
All right.
There we go. All right, so
All right.
6, we just did 6, we do 7 now. To establish lead agency, C to establish lead agency status, I'll move that. All in a second. Councilman Troy, all in favor? Okay. Resolution of the town board referring this to the town planning board. Is there a motion to refer to the town planning board? Still the same stuff we did for the last one, just to clarify. Councilman Valentine. Second. Councilman Divney, all in favor?
Aye. Do we got to do a resolution for the county planning board? Yes, or no?
For this one?
Apparently, in speaking with Mary Marzullo, outside counsel, the referral has already been made. If you wish to ratify that referral, you can do that, the same motion as sending it to the town planning board for their comment.
It was done, what, in December we did that?
I think.
Or it was done like as a procedural matter?
As a procedural matter.
Okay.
Anything else?
It's oftentimes referred
We're good.
without,
All right. Yeah, we're.
Okay,
I
yeah,
think
well, there's no need.
We're
It's
good.
done,
We're
it's
good.
done. Okay.
All right.
And then now we have moving on to our bond issuance. So this is workshopping. We're not voting on this tonight. We're just going to talk about it a little bit. Jeff Bensick, our finance director, is just going to quickly explain. There's a whole bunch of next items in your agenda that are related to the bond issuance, every specific item we're bonding for. So go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Chris. If the town board will look at the separate page I gave for the capital items for bonding, what you'll see is there's a total of 12 resolutions. The first 4 are effective immediately. That's 1A through 1D. The second set of resolutions all are subject to permissive referendum, and that's numbers 2.1 through 2.7. And so for those, we have to give public notice of adoption, and then they'll be effective 30 days after. So we're looking at voting on all of these next on the 13th of February. And then the third set of resolutions require a public hearing, and those are all for the sewer. And we have to give 10 days notice for that. And so then, we'll be set up for the March 7th and March 13th workshop, and then RTBM on the 13th. So that will, all of those will be done by the 13th of March, and then we can go forward, work with bond counsel, and get these issued. But you can see on the summary page, that's everything that, the board agreed to in terms of what they wanted to bond for.
How is this list? How did this get put together? 'Cause this-
Bond counsel does it, and they break it down into
no, I
what's-
mean, how did we?
Originally, I can explain. So these were submitted back in the fall, like September, to Supervisor Stewart by the departments, their bonding requests. They were reviewed cursorily and then re-reviewed this winter. Talking to the department heads, we basically had a target of trying to get slightly lower on our total bonding. We went through the needs and everything, and a couple of you guys pointed out specific things that were talked about previously. And basically, we kept most of what was requested, except for a couple of larger items that we're going to go for grants for, in the sewer department mostly. But the majority of these things were requested. There was one park that was requested for Parks and Rec, but with everything going on with RPC and stuff, we're holding off on it. Generally speaking, though, this is department-driven bonding requests for capital projects, equipment, the road renewal program for highways in there, and it's just the rotating, replacing our bonding that's being finished out. We're going to come in about $1 million less than we were.
Yeah, as
bond
a
load.
reminder to the board, the initial requests were about $13.5 million, and so obviously this is down to $8.3 million.
And the $1.5 million of that was basically pre-bonding parts of the town hall that wasn't ready to even put out there, so that's kind of artificially high number. It was really
that's correct.
$10.5 million.
And this list is for a 2-year list of needs from the department heads, and we will pay off about $9 million over the next 2 years in terms of our bond debt service. So net, this is still going to reduce our overall debt. And that's why this amount was chosen.
Any specific questions on line items in the bonding? I think it's using that worksheet's probably the best thing, because it's really just a long bunch of text after it on the agenda.
And as a reminder to the board, we can reduce this list if the board decides to do it. We can't raise it, obviously.
Oh, I know
once we
that.
do that.
I'll take you, if I could maybe take you guys through real quick, and hit the high points, or are you guys good?
No,
You're okay? All
We've
right.
done this.
You're
This
good.
is my first rodeo.
I know, just making sure you're all right with it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Chris.
All right,
I
so
didn't get it.
let's, if we're okay with it, we'll start hitting the resolutions on the bonding. Then I did find this Ira Emanuel thing. We'll go back to that real quick and just explain what it is. So if everyone goods with this, we're just going to look through. Obviously, we're not voting on this right now. Really, these are all procedural votes based on that worksheet of our bonding list.
So what are we up to, 17?
So we're up to 12, 13, 14 is still bonding. Cherrybrook,
I think you're
15 still bonding,
sev-
16
17.
still bonding. Okay, hold on, 17. Yep, so 17 is the next one that is not bond-related. But before we get to that, we at the beginning mentioned a discussion of a proposed zone change agreement from Ira Emanuel. If you guys look at you have a very thick staple thing here at your table, which is Ira Emanuel. And basically, there is a parcel along Route 303, a shopping center, that a small portion thereof is, most of it's a CC district, which is, commercial, shopping center type thing. And there's a small parcel of it that is light industrial, and that light industrial section is causing a difficulty in having, certain things aren't permitted that actually you would want, like a restaurant, you can't do in a light industrial, but they could put theoretically a factory in the end of the shopping center because it's light industrial. They're trying to get the rest of the parcel converted to the CC. So we just have to basically say, yes, we're willing to talk about this, and we'll put it on an agenda. So if everyone's okay with that, we can schedule it. I don't know what your thoughts are, but they made a formal application to us on it. That's what this is.
Didn't we have something similar to this last year where they wanted a zone change on 303 up by,
This is over kind of towards,
no, you remember?
But he was spot zoning.
yeah, that's spot zoning. It was a little different.
No,
Yeah.
but it's similar in nature. I'm just saying, I'm sure this guy's making money on that building. I don't, just because he wants to put a restaurant in doesn't mean we necessarily have to give him a zone
So here's the
change.
question, well, the question is if it's a logical zone as it is. Basically, the parcel is split. There's a small part here on page like 20.
Well, until he comes in here, I'm not gonna make,
Right. I don't think he wasn't scheduled to come in. This is a discussion to determine whether we want to invite him in because he's making an appeal to us to hear him. If we're willing to hear him, we'll schedule him and get him on an actual agenda.
Did Jane look at this at the building
Yeah.
department?
You want to step up, Jane, and just give your thoughts on it?
Thank you.
Because to be fair to the guy, he wasn't here to present because he's not actually presenting.
Here.
Oh, he put a zoning map in there.
Okay, so this parcel has been a shopping center for a very long time. The problem is the zone line goes right down the middle of the property, basically. So one building is in the CC and one building is in the LI. Now, the uses change all the time in the shopping center. Sometimes there's someone in there for a year, sometimes in there for 2 years. So there's a vacant space that came before us recently, and they want to make it a restaurant. Well, the restaurant's not permitted in that building as the building's in the LI zone. So it becomes complicated because it's not a use permitted by right. So we have to, basically, it's a map correction
Yeah.
in the simplest of terms. So how we go about doing it legally, because he owns one piece of property that has
Just be,
in
the
two
one piece of
zones.
property is split into two zones. One of the
Correct.
zones is actually, I would say, not objectively, subjectively a worse zone, and that's one we'd be getting rid of.
I'm
And-
sorry, Jane, this is over where Marty's Bagels is?
Correct.
So there's Marty's Bagels is in one building, and I know
They're
there's
the
at least
CC.
2 or 3 restaurants in the other building.
Yeah.
So what is it,
Well,
cut the building in
but
half?
see, what happens is there's, the definition between what is considered a business and what is considered a restaurant creates a problem too, because a takeout is considered a business because it has less than 50 seats. So 49 and less is considered a business. Once you go above that, Now you're a restaurant, it's a different use. So
Right.
it's just a complicated mess. So having the lot split in half makes it even worse.
And the permitted uses by right in that LI are just weird for the
Correct.
space.
Like,
You'd
it
be allowed to
just
do like
doesn't
a
make
warehouse
sense.
there, but you couldn't do a restaurant in a shopping center, essentially.
And it's attached.
It's attached, yeah, it's not a separate building,
That's
it's the same
correct.
parcel.
And a number of the units within that strip center there have been vacant for a long time.
Right.
So what happens is if you had a restaurant in there and it was operating as a business and then just changed names, well, we don't really have a problem. But it's been sitting vacant.
Now
So
it's a
then
whole new
after a
application.
year, so now it comes back in, and it's been sitting there vacant, and we have to look at it again as if it's brand new.
Right.
So that created the issue.
So, again, what we're asking here is that the reason he's not here is because he's not making his formal presentation. He's asking us to hear him. So if we're okay with the concept that why we would be doing this, we can get it on the calendar
I'd be more than happy to listen.
and hear his application to us. So we're the only ones that could fix it, basically. It would reduce the LI zone, it would normalize the zoning on that parcel, and maybe help him fill his shopping center up too, which is probably a good thing. Okay.
Right, I
so-
mean, it's something that the board definitely
So-
should consider. I mean, the only other way he can achieve it is going to the zoning board and getting
Right.
a ton of variances, which will happen each time then that
And
they
then
come in.
it plugs you up in terms of your processes with.
Right, we'd rather have a clear defined use within that parcel and everybody's on the same page.
Okay. All right, so maybe what we can do is I could invite him, I think, unless there's a restriction on time, I think I can just invite him to the next town board meeting to make his forum presentation. If everyone's okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll invite him for the February 13th to actually present what he just given us in writing. All right, thank you, Jane, and thank you. Glad I noticed this. We were able to figure that out. Okay. 17, that's still the bond, actually. It's sewer facilities. So then we're on to 18. So there's a proposed resolution workshopping to establish tanker avoidance zones in the Hudson River between Yonkers and Kingston, which is along our section of the Hudson River as well. Basically, we're calling on, and this is a resolution that's been done by other municipalities in the area, calling upon the Coast Guard to essentially put safety zones around the area to make sure that oil tankers don't get crashed into. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments on this? Again, we're not voting on this, we're just discussing, make sure we want to take it forward. Anything? No?
No.
Okay, good. All right, then we have the proposed resolution for the creation of the Air Quality Review Committee. You've all seen this text here. Now it's out for the discussion. We'll be voting on it and appointing as well at the next meeting. And we already had some feedback from the town board. Any other comments from you guys on it? No, you good?
Nope.
Okay.
Got some good resumes.
Yeah, so far we've had some good resumes. We have a couple more interviews left, and we have a couple folks who are experts who are employed with the town that will be on the committee as well. Next one is we have a proposed memorializing resolution opposing congestion pricing in Manhattan. For background, our illustrious governor has decided to try to put in a toll for anyone traveling south of 60th Street in Manhattan, and he didn't even have the common courtesy for us to exempt the bridge toll we'd be paying and deduct it. So that could be up to $11.52 for a car to $25.34 for a truck. I think we all unanimously want that to not happen, so if anyone has any issues with the way I wrote the resolution, please let me know. We could edit it, and then we can vote next time. No? Any thoughts? Okay. And then, same thing for the O&R rate increase. Orange and Rockland recently put forward a rate increase. In raw dollar amounts, it's not the most enormous rate increase in God's history, but it is probably a little bit unfair to be trying to do it all in 1 year and also not passing on all the savings from the tax bill from the federal level onto the customers. So what we are trying to do is get the Public Service Commission to deny it as presented and at minimum require they lower their net comprehensive income, ensure that it is locked into a 3-year rate agreement over a period of 3 years, not a 1 year, and also ensure that all the savings from the federal bill are passed on to the customers, not taken into the shareholders. Any thoughts on this one? You guys good with it?
Good idea.
Okay. Next, we have a equalization rate resolution. Right now, we are trying to work with our state representatives to create a band for the folks in our two overlapping school districts of Clarkstown, Nyack and Nanuet. They go through things where the tax burden shifts wildly to one side or the other in a given year because of just math at the state level, basically. And what this is going to do is give some ammo for our state reps to lobby and get a law passed that will put a ban on that of 1% in any direction in a given year, thereby stabilizing the taxes over there. We had a pretty bad situation last year. We had to rush our assessor and to try to fix in the back end. And we did get it better, but we want to try to make it more smooth. We'll still then have to do, when we get to the point, a home rule request and everything like that. This is kind of just background for them to show as they shop it around Albany. Anyone okay with that? Any comments? Okay. And then on a similar note, last year Clarkstown got a law, a special legislation that would limit the sudden shifts between homestead and non-homestead properties. Therefore, example, in a given year, let's say we cut taxes by 30%, the shift in assessments between a homestead and non-homestead could still result in a net tax increase to either our businesses or our homeowners. We want to stabilize it at a 1% band again, just like that. This was passed already for Clarkstown last year. We didn't jump in, or we weren't invited in, depends on, I guess, whether you ask Clarkstown or Orangetown. And we're just going to try to get that legislation passed for us this here also. And same thing, we're just going to use this to lobby for it. Okay. Then we have the Gold Cap Consulting Group agreement. This is the one I mentioned where we're going to bring him in, small fee up front. He'll look at all our subscriptions, all of our recurring payments, identify savings, and then there will be further resolution by the board to then pay him based on the savings that is results from his investigation. So it's kind of a small investment to get someone to really look at everything. He saved Clarkstown about $200,000 when he came in a couple of years ago, which is recurring $200,000, not just one time $200,000, because it's recurring subscriptions. Does anyone have any thoughts on that one? Everyone okay? It's $5,000 up front to save money on a recurring basis.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So they'll be able to get to work on that. Association of Towns. This is just letting people attend the Association of Towns.
Yep.
And then the delegate of the Association of Towns, we held a drawing at our department heads meeting out of Jim Dean's hat. And town attorney drew the short straw. They'll be, they were picking someone to be our delegate, and we'll have that blank space filled in by next week. Currently under discussion. They're negotiating, I'm sure. Now I know why you guys are getting back to me. You're busy with the delegate thing. So yeah, anyway, we'll fill the name in when we get there. It's kind of a technicality. That'll be for next week. Then we will be setting a public hearing. This is from town attorney, if you have anything to say about it, John, regarding the child daycare center. This is at the Lowe's area, or is this at the CVS area? This is the Lowe's area. Across the street, by the pads over by Stop and Shop.
Stop and Shop.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay. So we just need to have a hearing on it for their special permit in April. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please stop me. But then again, this is highway now. For St. Patrick's Day support and assistance, green stripe, barricades, that sort of thing, that'll be voted on next week. And then approving sewer work certificates of registrations for DEME. These are the list of people. And then highway, parks, and police. This is lend assistance to the John Below run event. Then we have, everyone's okay so far with these things. We have from building, Jane, do you want to briefly say to explain the fees things? Or is everyone comfortable with what we're doing with our fees associated with the process?
My understanding is our fees are being raised to reflect what other towns in Rockland charge.
Yeah, so then that's pretty much it. I don't want to have you get to the point. Okay, you all spoke to it. So basically, for the public, it's our fees here in Orangetown for building permits or whatever, slightly out of whack with the neighboring areas. We just want to level set them. It will, minorly increase some of them, but we'll have an aggregate a good financial effect for the town with minimal impact on everyone else who's applying. And also, we're not getting higher than anyone. We're just equaling them. So, all right, we'll vote on that next week then. This is a kind of interesting thing that just popped up. So there's a bad property, I would call it, that has a violation notice. You're going to have to, at some point, it's been posted the violation notice, which enables us to have a public hearing.
Well, this is ongoing.
It's an ongoing issue. It's been ongoing. The guy's been evicted and everything. We took further steps recently. There was a padlock that was put on there's a hoarding situation. Padlock was put on a container that was on there. through the efforts of both our building and our police department were involved. We were acting based on a neighbor complaint about a gentleman coming back and still hoarding, even though he'd been evicted and the health department had been involved.
Well, I think it was, that property was condemned.
It was condemned, actually,
By
right, yeah.
by the Rockland County Department
So
of
he was
Health.
still returning and putting stuff on the property, so now there's still a possibility we're gonna have to go further.
Does he still,
Somebody was living in the storage container.
does he still have that car with all the paper in it? Or did they,
The vehicles are still there.
because you gotta realize, he not only does, he has garbage all lined up on his
Yeah.
side, he's got the storage container on the front, then he's got cars where he has like, the car is completely filled with garbage.
Yeah, and it's right on the main corner in Pearl River.
Well,
It's right across from a church. or
It's
next
right
door to the
there,
church.
well, it's John Street on the corner of John and Prospect.
Yeah, corner of John and Prospect, yeah. So it's a pretty bad situation. So we'll have the public hearing then in March to be able to possibly clear the property out.
To clarify, this proposal will only remove the litter.
Not the structures.
We have not been able to get anybody that is willing to take the cars or the storage container.
Yeah, there's an issue with getting a contractor or someone who can take those things for us.
Wow.
It's just, there's such a big, and there's probably health
Is
issues.
there, does he have license plates on the cars?
I do not believe so, but that none of the companies that we've contacted that
They won't take
do any
one
type
that
of
time.
cleanup like this
Yeah.
will take them.
So can we take the garbage within the car?
Yes, so, I mean,
It's
again,
litter.
this comes down to his rights.
Right.
Yeah, but that's more of a legal question.
This is the step we have to take to move in the right direction, at minimum.
So,
Yeah, I mean, this is clearing out the property. No, they won't be able to go into the residence yet, but it's clearing out the outside, yeah.
Alright, I only got a match.
the health department told him he had to clean out his residence because it was not habitable. He refused to do it. They gave him extended time, they took him to court, and they came back, and the court said, that's enough, lock it up, and take him out. They gave him an option of a place to live. He refuses to live there. So no one's really sure about where he's living at this point. One of the neighbors called and complained, thought he was living inside the container. So our code allowed for OB's EPA to secure any structures, so the container is technically a structure. So the police department accompanied my inspector, and they went inside to make sure he wasn't in there before they locked it.
It was a good check
But it
there,
definitely looked like
yeah.
somebody was living in there,
That's good.
so they locked it up. And at this point, I don't think anybody knows where he is. Now, he has ignored violation after violation, court hearings, things like that. So we're just left with. we have
Progressing with what we can do.
provision of our code that
Yeah.
allows us to clean up the property. How far we can go with that is a legal question.
So basically, this will authorize that process after the public hearing, and then once you have that authorization, you can then, you consult with lawyers and police and whatever's necessary to determine how far we can go with the clearing of the property without
Right, so this
crossing a line.
proposal is for 1-800-GOT-JUNK to take anything that's accessible,
Okay,
that's thrown about the property.
right.
Clean up the outside.
Clean up the outside, and then if it's the container's padlocked, they can't get in, at least the outside's clean, and then county health can deal with some other issues that they have to deal with. Okay, so the public hearing will be March 13th, and then you'll be able to actually clean it up, a little spring cleaning over there. All right, Parks and Rec, we have approval of showmobile and other such items for the St. Patrick's Day Parade and Showing Barbarians. That'll be on the next agenda. Then we have proposals for personnel to appoint folks for different positions. We've got Matt Kane and Matt Lenahan being moved to different titles. And then also Christian Catania on the back. Okay. So does anyone have any additional items they want to bring up before we move to both executive session and to adjourn?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so I will for a motion that we move into executive session to discuss matters related to civic personnel and subsequently move immediately to adjournment. Yes, we're going to adjourn in memory of Jack Lovett, our former Orangetown supervisor who passed away, and in memory of Josephine Saltarelli, mother of Mary Ferrara of the town attorney's office. Do I have a second for the motion? Councilman Troy?
Yo, Jack Lovett. former supervisor, his son works in the sewer department.
Yes, he does, yeah. So they're both connected to employees here at the town. Is there a second? Oh, sorry, second was Dennis. All in favor? Okay. Thank you very much.